Hello, I'm the Smoking Cheddar, but you probably already knew that. So, today, as promised from last week, you will not be getting another officer spotlight video on the new Artillery Officer Yardbird. In fact, you will be getting this, a unit build called the Adder. I've called it the Cheese Adder because I like cheese. I'm cheddar cheese, and this is such a cheesy helicopter. It's a cheese build beyond all belief. Now, I have had people reach out to me about this build already from things that I've mentioned in the Officer Spotlight from last week. All in good time, my friends. We will explain absolutely everything about this build. We'll explain how it works. We'll explain why it works. And as always with these unit builds, they can go on for quite some time. So please make sure you have yourselves a drink and that you are comfortable. Excuse me, that's the white monster talking, and that you have yourselves a snack. Because we're going to delve into what is possibly going to be the most defining build for a helicopter I've ever come up with, to the point where I don't think there's much point in rolling much else. I mean, there are ways to defeat a helicopter, obviously, but this is just going to be nasty on a level not really seen before. And as I did explain repeatedly in last week's stream, there's a lot we can do with this. I'm now going to show you how, what, where, and why, and what it all means. So, as always, we will be going through the unit, we'll be going through the components, to which I don't believe there's actually any deviation of parts with the Liberty helicopter, but we'll go through them anyway. We'll be going through the tech tree, advanced, and then only halfway through modern. We'll be going through the officers and their related gear components, and at the end we'll have a summary and conclusion as to how this unit fits together with all of that knowledge that we've spoken about. And then I'll do some Q&A with you guys if there's anyone in chat. Don't take this the wrong way, guys. I hope there isn't anyone watching tonight. Two reasons. The fight for Cyberstan is on, and I don't want to be on Warpath. I want to be on Helldivers too. Second reason, at midnight for me, it is reset and we go into Conquest. And it's set to be a pretty hefty one. We'll also cover that a little bit at the end as well, because I know some of you are going to be itching to see who I'm up against, because people do on the odd occasion ask me to do PvP content, and it's something that I do very rarely these days. But yeah, we'll just cover a little bit of the conquest that I'm going into as well. And should anyone actually be hanging around at that stage and actually want to see Helldivers, I may oblige so, as forewarned in the community post I put out on YouTube at the start of the week. But that is not set in stone, because obviously if you guys don't want to see it, I'm not exactly about to sit on stream for another hour just so you have content you don't want to watch, irrelevant of whether or not I actually want to make it, because live streaming can be a bit of a drain sometimes, and today is no exception. Anyway, I digress. Let's go forwards with the unit proper. So, why are we choosing the Liberty helicopter for this build? Well, all helicopters get penetration, they all get all terrain. So, if you weren't aware, capable of penetrating armor, dealing massive damage to their targets. All terrain, unrestricted by terrain, helicopters can bypass obstacles on the battlefield, dodge modern helicopter. Okay, you can't click on that yet. Dodge. Modern helicopters have an additional 5% chance to dodge normal attacks. That's quite nice. But what we're really interested in here is this stat here, which is the camp bonus, which is velocity boost, which gives us a higher speed than other helicopters from other camps. Now we'll just look at it in S1 comparison. We have a pen depth of 316 maximum with a 56 km/h speed. We're not really interested in the sloped, because we're not really relying on this sloped armor to protect us, as will become evident. And if we compare it to, say, the Liberty main battle tank, We have a 316 pen, which is higher than the sloped rating for this. It's higher than the sloped rating of 249 for the Martyr main battle tank as well in the same bracket. And it is also higher than the sloped armor on the Vanguard main battle tank for the same bracket. And last but not least, it is not high enough to penetrate regularly on the super heavy. Now, the key point there is regularly. Okay, we're not building this as a penetration machine. We're building this. You'll see as we go forwards how we're building this, but this is going to take advantage of a few nifty little mechanics, and I'm going to try and splice them together to make them really nasty for you. But suffice to say, it will pen the super heavy, but it won't pen it with every single shot because it does not meet the minimum sloped armor requirements. So your pen depth, the ability to penetrate enemy sloped armor, the higher the pen depth, the easier it is to penetrate the target's armor. If the troop's pen depth is far greater than the sloped armor, the risk of over penetrating greatly reduces the damage. Now, we've discussed this multiple times. This doesn't work in the way that most people think it works. Yes, over penetration does have a damage debuff. Penetration is a damage increase. So what you're actually doing is reducing that damage increase. You're not actually reducing the damage done. So when people say, "Oh, you can overpen the target, it's less efficient," it's not. Trust me, it's not. Otherwise the anti-tank gun would be terrible. Point in case. And we can compare that just by simply looking at the sloped armor here at 313, and then we can go over to the anti-tank gun at the same level, and oh look, you've got 100 mil more pen capabilities. That's my point. What we're looking at is we're not going to be penetrating the super heavy constantly, but we will be penetrating it probably about 8 out of 10 shots, which is probably more than enough, to be fair, in a defensive situation. That is why we are using the Liberty, because it's fast. It does have a good penetration rating. We're not going to be really relying on its HP or its sloped armor. We're mainly going to be relying on its speed, and it's 5%. Bear in mind, 5% bonus dodge charge. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the tech real quick. No, actually, we won't. We won't look at the tech first. What we'll look at first is we'll look at the blueprints in Forge. I do this like every week, and I still don't know where anything is. I'm still baffled why anyone watches me. Camp Liberty parts. Okay, as you can see here, firepower load, firepower load, firepower load, and also pen depth. So there is no deviation on components for the rocket pod. There is no deviation on components for the missile pods. There's no deviation on components for the engines, although we do want the maximum where possible for troop speed. So the main supplies, obviously, what are we going to be putting in the auxiliary slots? We are going to probably want just firepower, double firepower for both. We're not actually interested in the HP, even in terms of its survivability, and it will become apparent why once we get to the officers. But this is what we're really concerned about at the moment in time. So we're concerned about getting as much firepower onto this unit as possible. So let's have a quick look at the tech. So we'll go into advanced. We're not going into modern first and getting the two confused like I did the other week. We're going to skip straight to the end, and we'll do the middle. Then we'll show the ones that you kind of need maxed out if you're not maxing out the tree. So this is the main reason why this is quite important. This is the core aspect of the build. Increases the tank and helicopter's normal attacks critical strike rate by 5%. So we get a 5% critical strike rate as standard for the helicopter before we've even applied anything else. And we get a critical strike damage bonus of 50%. So instead of your critical strikes dealing 150% unit damage, it's now dealing 200% unit damage. Guys, if you've been a long time follower, you've heard me say this 100 times, and I will say it 100 times more for every time this build becomes relevant. This is what we're looking into right now. We're looking very much specifically into that base 5% crit rate and pumping up the damage to 200%. Obviously, naturally, we're going to want the damage resistance bonuses and the damage intensity bonuses maxed out. We're going to want the tank penetration damage maxed out. We want the load time reduction maxed out. The firing accuracy, we only want that on minimum. Speed bonus for heavies and super heavies isn't relevant, so that's minimum. HP bonus for light tanks, medium tanks, tank hunters, and helicopters. Kinda need this one maxed out. Training speed, we don't need that maxed out. Tank destroyers. Every time a tank hunter or a helicopter penetrates enemy armor, its firepower is increased by 5% and for 4 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. So this is part of the reason why we want that load time reduction in the tech tree, so we can stack this a lot more efficiently and a lot more regularly. And obviously up to 15% bonus firepower every time you hit a penetration hit, means your next subsequent penetration hit is going to objectively deal more damage. We don't need the damage resistance from infantry particularly because we can get away from them. Tank is 50-50. That is kind of a you decision whether or not you max that one out. Artillery, I would suggest you get this one maxed out because if you are going to get outranged and hit, this will save your bacon. We don't need reserves capacity maxed out. Intensity versus everything, with the exception of infantry. Helicopters are no good against infantry. You shouldn't be engaging them. This only needs to be on minimum. But these two versus tanks and artillery should be at maximum, as should the firepower and the HP naturally. And the training speed, yeah, just keep that on minimum, as low as you can get away with having that. So that is the advanced tech tree for the helicopter. We'll go on to the modern. As always, guys, with the modern tech tree, we're only looking at the middle and going backwards, just for the sheer length of time it takes to accomplish anything in this game. So we are looking at, was it unmanned turrets, wasn't it? Yeah. Whenever a tank hunter or helicopter penetrates enemy armor, it gains 5% firepower bonus and reduces the target speed by 35% for 5 seconds. So this is going to play into that first stat we looked at with the helicopter. Remember I said we're looking at the helicopter Liberty because we get a faster movement speed. Well, when you pen a target and you reduce the target's movement speed, it's not going to be able to get away from you as much. You can start to see how this unit is going to work. We're going to leverage that speed. I'm going to leverage it well. And of course, this also increases the firepower with subsequent penetration hits. So we are interested in those penetration bonuses yet again. Tank damage resistance when versus tanks, I suggest you get that one maxed out. You definitely want the artillery. And again, not really interested in the infantry, just run away from them. Garrison recovery rate, we only need that at the bare minimum. HP and firepower, this is going to be a field-based unit, so you probably want to get them picked up. Base HP is not required, but who's to say no? We don't need those. Those are base firepowers. Garrison intensity bonus would be nice, but it is not a priority to max out. Blast mitigation bonus would be nice to have. Tank pen damage is going to be key. We are going to need that. Training speed is not necessary, but the HP and the firepower are key components in this build. So we can see here that we're getting a little bit of speed bonuses, we're getting a little bit of crit bonuses, we're getting a lot of firepower bonuses being leveraged from penetrating attacks for the helicopter. So let's have a look at the officers and see how we're going to capitalize on these newfound stats. Officers. Right, so to no one's shock and or surprise, I didn't actually equip the gear, um, which we kind of want that. We'll get to the aid when we get to the aid. Okay, so why have we got Haymaker as the captain for the unit? Well, before we go anywhere, we've got this critical strike rating here of 20%, plus the 5% that you have from the tech tree. That is a critical strike rating of 25%. For those of you who aren't very good at maths or not very good at this game, that is 1 in 4 shots will be a critical strike when it lands. So that is why we're going for this guy. We get a bonus of 15% firepower, and that can actually increase and stack even higher. Remember the two techs, every time we get a penetration, we get a uh, firepower increase. So we're using him to also leverage even higher levels of firepower as this, the tech tree. So both of these are tech relevant, is what I'm saying. What else do we get? We get a damage resist reduction, and we get breach, a debuff that reduces the target damage resistance, but it doesn't stack with anything else. So this is his key. This is his one of his core mechanics is that every 4 seconds you can drop the target's damage resistance by 25%, and it can be triggered once every 2 seconds for 4 seconds. And at the rate a helicopter fires, that's going to be very, very, very useful for you. Very useful indeed. So his coefficiency is obviously 1800, and it gives us a bonus damage intensity, which plays into the damage resist reduction that we're going to be deploying upon the target. And also, we get this damage intensity buff here, and we get a damage resistance buff here, which is very handy when we're out in the field. And yes, we will now cover the main reason why he is the captain. When this officer is in a tank, hunter, or helicopter troop, the troop gains 15% extra dodge chance. When this officer is in a tank or helicopter troop, the troop receives diminishing returns of an additional 35% over 12 seconds upon entering combat. So we have a 15% dodge chance plus the 5% dodge rating that comes with the helicopter. So that is a 20% dodge chance. We're going to avoid 1 in 5 attacks that are being leveraged against us, which leads us on to the trained skills. Now, I know last week we said we could use an additional 8% here. We could use an additional 8% here, but we're not going to. We're going to make a more balanced approach here. So what we have gone for is, if you have this skill available, if not, you can use any critical strike rating bonus that you might have available. But we're going for this one, which is Meld into the Shadows, because it's objectively the best critical strike train bonus that you can get. It gives us a 20%. So that's immediately out of the gate, just with this officer and the tech and his trained skills. We are looking at a 45% critical strike rating. And if you remember what I said last week about how once you get over a certain percentage, it's almost always critting. You don't need it to be up to 100%. It needs to be over like 60%, 65%. And then the odds are so heavily in your favor that you're going to be critting pretty much all the time. This is just bringing us under halfway at 45%. So this should indicate to you that you're going to be, although it's not in your favor, that you're going to be critical strike hitting. It is so close to the 50-50 mark that you will see the benefits from this almost immediately. But also we get a normal attack boost, which is basically the same as damage intensity, but damage intensity affects all forms of damage, while normal attack boosting only affects normal attacks, which is going to be key for our build, because if you remember, this build is going to be utilizing that penetration, forcing the target to slow down while stacking firepower, and we're using the Liberty helicopter to move quickly towards the target. So this is why he is the captain. And yes, you saw me equip it. This is why we're going for the tank load time reduction, the normal attack crit rate of an additional 5%, boosting us. Well, that's 5% for me at the minute at level 6, I'd like to point out. So as it stands at a level 6 piece of equipment, we are getting 50%, well, 50, yeah, 50.5% critical strike rating. We're getting an additional 11% HP, and we're also getting damage intensity. Whenever this officer troop eliminates enemies, it increases the damage intensity by 1.2% for 8 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. This thing is going to be so lethal on contact that that's going to shoot up very quickly for you by the sheer fact that we're going to be just, well, we're going to be abusing this damage intensity. I'll give you that for nothing. So with gear, it's very important that you focus one item at a time. So if you have legendary, free legendary components, you are focusing all of your legendary components onto one legendary and all of your epic onto epic. So that being said, let's move on to the aid. And like I suggested last week, we will be using Margarita. Why are we using Margarita? She gets a 10% dodge rate. So if you remember, we've got a 20% dodge rate, did I say? I can't remember now. I can't add up or remember any of this. So he's got 15% plus the fives. That is a 20% dodge rate plus the additional 35 upon entering combat. But we're not really going to include that at this moment in time. But with Margarita, we get an additional 10%. So that's a 30% dodge rating out the gate. And as soon as you enter combat, either being attacked or you attack, that goes up to 65%, diminishing back down to 30% over 12 seconds. So 65%, that's quite a lot of dodge capability. That's a significant amount. And because we're utilizing that damage intensity, that critical strike, and that penetration, we're using these very heavily, not necessarily the skills. We're looking at the officer awakened ability being more utility based, which is why we've gone for Margarita. Margarita gives us either shock or she gives us tear gas, which will either reset the normal attack time or reduce or delay the skill prep time by 1 second, which can be very key when you're fighting a tank out in the field. Remember that, because if you're lucky, every attack has a 75% of deploying either one or the other at equal rates. And you can only deploy one every 8 seconds. So you're guaranteed basically on an attack to get at least one of these. You're either going to delay that shield on the MBT going off or that skill shot going off on that artillery, or you're going to reset the load time of the artillery or the tank that you're engaging. Remember, this unit, we're not really engaging infantry with it. You're not suicidal. That's not its point. You've got plenty of other units to choose from to fight infantry. But that is the reason, the two main reasons why we're using her. We have a dodge chance and we have this shock ability or the tear gas ability, both of which we can really, really leverage out in the field. The second most important reason why is she does have very high skill damage. Now, I know I said we're not focusing on skill damage, but should we fire off a skill shot, if she is in the aid slot, we get a bonus. Okay, we get what I call a kill shot. Once the target is below 75% HP, we deal an additional 550 co-efficiency damage, but that's already on top of the pretty high 1800 co-efficiency damage. So this goes back to me saying this is a core officer because she is so flexible and versatile. You can use her on artillery against bases, you can use her on helicopters, tanks, hell, you can even use her on infantry. But for this build in particular, especially with the helicopter, we're leveraging this dodge rate and it is going to be absolutely brilliant. Trust me on this. So what are the trained skills we have elected to go for? Damage intensity, this one specifically, this balance skill, because it is not infantry only, even though it comes off of an infantry officer, and we can increase the damage intensity by 10% as well as our damage resistance. We're not too worried about the damage in resistance because of how we're going to be using this unit, but we are very, very interested in that damage intensity. That being said, we are not training damage intensity for the second skill. We could, but more than likely you already have a helicopter, which means you already have Valkyrie. So this is where officer redundancy comes into play. As time goes on and you awaken and unlock more officers and you play towards your own tech, you're going to cycle out officers who are max level and max cap on their skills. And you're going to think to yourself, oh, that was a waste. This is where you are wrong. This is why they are not a waste. You can still use them. You're going to get a 5% troop speed at level 5 for this skill, and you're going to get a bonus firepower of 20%. Bonus speed. We're using that speed even more. 5% is going to make a lot of difference on this helicopter build. So this is the aid, very specifically the aid. Now, what gear should we choose? So we have quite a lot to choose from. We could go for normal attack boost. We could go for troop skill, but we're not using skill shots really. Firepower and damage resistance. This is a pretty good one. We also have damage intensity or damage resistance. So this boils down to one key feature. Which one you would rather max out? So would you rather have the 17.5% on the damage intensity, or would you rather have the 35% normal attack boost? Bear in mind what you gain in HP, you are losing in damage resistance. Personally, I feel for this build, for how it is going to go, you're going to want the knuckle dusters. Okay, now, like I said, you want to focus all of your legendary components onto one and all of your epic components onto another. I think you should be focusing, if you're doing this build, on the knuckle dusters, on the aid for the normal attack boost and the troop HP. It will absolutely send the enemies into complete disarray, and they will fear your helicopter. They will target it from the air. And this is why fighters are so important, to protect those ground assets. So that is the build in its entirety. That is how we're going to build this cheddar cheese adder, the absolute vicious snake of a unit. And before we do anything else, we'll just go apply, so I don't have to remember to do that later. And we will quickly discuss the last thing, which is, should you have access to getting a skin, the additional 5% firepower will play into that tech. Not only will it play into that tech, it will play into your trained skills. That is why we're going to probably want to get at least one skin. A lib heli build. This is probably, I think, the second lib heli build. Zamvos, I think it's the second one I've done. I'm a bit partial to the lib heli myself. I do have one, or I had one, I should say. So there you have it. That is the build in its entirety. So time for the summary and conclusion. What does all of this put together mean, and how do we use this? How do we execute the use of this helicopter? Well, in terms of a defensive helicopter, it doesn't need to leave the base if your base is under attack. It is going to aid in taking down that super heavy should you have the ability with an anti-tank gun to absolutely do that very quickly, and it will just swap through targets like main battle tanks, and it will swap through artillery pieces. Should there be a gap for you to pull this thing out and utilize it in its entirety, it's going to bleed your opponent dry. They're going to see this and just be like, oh, hell no, I'm not fighting that. Now, in terms of micromanagement, once you are in a large scale battle and you are using a artillery piece, you're going to be donating those artillery pieces, obviously. You're going to be donating most of those tanks as well. You're going to be donating that infantry. So this is a micro manage unit. This is specifically a micro manage unit. This is not a unit that you want to donate to AGs. This is one that you want to operate for ratting. This is designed to fly across the battlefield, locate a weak unit that has strayed from the main group, and effectively execute it and just wipe it out and withdraw. We've got the bonus movement speed to absolutely capitalize on that. We've got the bonus unit damage, so the initial contact damage of the unit is going to be at its highest. We've got a very high dodge rate, giving it its survivability out in the field to contribute towards that movement speed, which is also going to aid in survivability. It's going to have a very long range as a result. You're going to be able to move this one or two villages over in order to start engaging enemy AGs from the rear and from the side, um, or look for those resupplies and plink them off. You're going to be able to gun them down very quickly. You're going to be able to chase them and gun them down. This is basically going to work like the mobile scout light tank build, but it is going to be able to fly over bases, around terrain obstacles. We're not limited. We can just go in a straight line towards our target. So this is going to be very nasty. Now, what we're doing is we're leveraging that critical strike rating so high at 50% with the component at, with the gear at level 6, I think it was, that 1 in 2 shots is going to be a critical strike. Now that's flipping a coin every single time, but because you're over the 50% by 0.5%, the odds are in your favor that every time you've got more of a chance that every shot is going to be a crit, and successive shots are going to be a crit. Plus, you're going to be able to pen main battle tanks out in the field without a problem. And should they turn to engage you and you are entering combat with that vehicle for the first time, you're going to have a total of a 65% dodge rate, which means any incoming rounds, the odds are in your favor that you're not going to get hit. And even if it goes to the 12-second mark and they are using one shield officer and one skill officer, you should still be able to win the fight because you are going to be dealing an overwhelming amount of damage. It doesn't mean you're not going to take casualties. This thing's main weaknesses will be infantry and air assets. If the infantry catch you, it's game over. You ain't getting out of there. If the air assets catch you, like a bomber, again, you're going to be too squishy. You're not going to have a lot of HP, and you've got no way of defending yourself. So these are the limitations for that build. Okay, you're able to basically leave the base and strike at targets rapidly across the battlefield, or if they are approaching your base, you're able to do that, or if there is a gap in a base defense situation, you'll be able to do that as well. But you must remember at all times, this thing is not going to have a lot of health, it's not going to have a lot of armor, and it's not going to take a lot to kill it. Even with a 65% dodge rate, that's up against an AG. If they target this thing as soon as it pops out, it's over, it's gone. You can kiss it goodbye, which is why I suggest you leave it in your base as a defensive unit, leveraging that penetration rating, leveraging that critical strike bonus, and that attack speed that comes with helicopters naturally. Obviously, we have two very high and hard hitting critical skill shot officers with a lot of damage intensity attached to them. This helicopter is basically, I'm cheesing a number of mechanics here with it. I'm cheesing the dodge, I'm cheesing the crit, and I'm cheesing the damage intensity slash normal attack damage. We're not looking to engage a target for an extended period of time to get that skill shot off. If the skill shots go off, it's just a bonus. What we're looking to do is fly into the target, nice, low and slow, hit it, run away, and just rinse and repeat. If you can catch an artillery piece and you can get the first shot off, it's gone. It's out of the game. By the time they turn and charge to fire on you, even an RL, you're going to wipe them out. You're just going to decimate them. So don't worry. This thing moves quick. It strikes hard. It's going to be a glass cannon, and much like a snake, it will get absolutely bummed by a man with a bayonet. So make of that what you will, ladies and gentlemen. That is the adder build for you this fine and wonderful afternoon, right as we go into the conquest. Now, I could have done this earlier on in the week. I had originally planned to do this on Monday night, but then I put it off because I couldn't be bothered. And then I was going to do it last night, but we invaded Cyberstan, and that was more important than putting out a live stream for you guys. I'm sorry, I don't. That is just how it is. I don't. I know I talk a lot about this game, and my channel has basically grown because of this game. But I don't just play this game. I play this game a lot. Don't get me wrong, but I don't just play this game. So when things like this happen, where we've got a massive campaign going on in Helldivers 2, or I'm doing a boss run on Dark Souls or Elden Ring, I'm going to play other games as well. And we've got a new expansion coming out for Diablo 2. After 25 years, we're finally getting a new expansion for Diablo 2. That's just giving me another excuse to play it for another 25 years. Holy shit, I'll be like fucking 65. Wow. Anyway, that was more than I wanted to think about in that moment in time. So, have you guys got any questions in relation to this build? Are there any thoughts about this build that you guys want to share right now? I see we've got quite a few viewers in this evening, which is a issue because I was kind of hoping no one was going to watch this, so I could go play Helldivers. And while you guys are thinking of some questions, we'll just go over a few catch-up pieces here. First catch-up piece we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the Dominion core that I'm doing. You'll see it's at 135 out of 513, and you'll see that we are at 4 out of 5 here for the boot. For the base troop damage resistance, we are just 750 out of 1160. So this should be either Sunday, if I'm lucky, or probably next week on Wednesday. I should have this. So it'll be one of the two. It'll be in the next 7 days. I'll have this maxed out, and then we'll be looking at doing this last block here, getting over the line into phase 2. So that's that. That's a quick update there. I know you guys are interested in what else is going on. I done quite a bit of overtime recently at work, so I'm not going to lie. Here you go. As always, I'm fully honest and open about how much I spend on this game. I feel like if I'm not, it's a disservice. Like I said, I've done plenty of overtime in last month, and I got paid well for it. So I put £50 on, and I've got some city badges rolling in every day to help me get through that cycle for conversions over here for my drill orders. So I figured it was worth it for me. As always, I never encourage anyone to spend money on this game. I don't think this game's really worth it, but I'm in a financial position where I could afford it, and I was interested in just helping myself along a little bit there. What else? Conquest. I know you're itching to see what's going on in my conquest. As you can see, it starts in 3 hours' time and 18 minutes, and we are going to be starting just down here, and our opponents will be from server 92 RW. So let's have a quick look at them. We can have a nosy together, shall we? They're being led by this dude Pac-Man here. He looks pretty mean. For server 92, that's a considerable amount of kills. His tech's pretty low. Reserve losses, he's nearly broken even, so he's a fairly good player. We can see the officer power here is at 12.2. Now, this is quite an interesting stat because I was looking quite heavily. I was like having a route around, and I was having a look to see if I could see the officer power stat, how it was being affected. And then I noticed something this afternoon that my officer power stat is at 19.6. And that's when I started reading through this list, and I noticed that there wasn't a stat specifically for um, gear. So your gear score and the gear you have is directly contributing towards an officer, um, your officer power stat. So this this board here, you see, I'm now up to 407, a jump of I think about 10k from last week. Actually, you can see all of the components here. We're at 30, 41. You can see I'm doing the knife first for it's mainly for this damage resistance rather than the damage intensity, because that's going on my soak infantry. The same with this one, because we get firepower. I'm not really interested in that, but I am interested in damage resistance bonus again, which I will also be focusing on once I've got this knife maxed out. And as you can see here, the knife is at level 33 out of 40, so we're doing pretty nice on that. And that is why I noticed that everyone's officer power is pretty low. So we've got 16.9 here. So he's probably got all of his main officers awakened, and he's probably got pretty decent component gear on them. Burpee. I swear this guy used to be on my server. I swear this guy was on S29, or I've played him before from another server. I don't fucking know. This guy, I'm not gonna lie, this guy I'm worried about. He's got a 1.1 in million kills, so he's in my kill range. He's also in my loss range, but he's doing better than me by about 100,000. Not only that, his tech power is 109, so he is comparable to me in both tech power, kills. He's comparable to me in losses. I am a little bit ahead of him on the officer power, but not a lot. I think what I say? Mine was 19.4. Is it 16.4? It's 19.6. So I'm only 3 mil really ahead of him on gear, which is going to make a difference out in the field. But this guy is obviously sitting at 432 at the moment. This is before he is reduced in power as he goes in. And I would like to point out I'm sitting at 354 before I'm reduced in power before I go in. Now, the only thing that is going to be affected is my walls and my naval level, because you'll notice they're all capped at 8.0, and all my air are not only capped at 8.0, but they're also capped at 120, and the same with my ground. So this stat here, the 354 mil, that is going to be a fairly accurate power stat. I think I'm probably going to get my walls cut in half. Let's have a look. Battlefield restrictions. Fortifications for my walls will be fortified 20. So there, I'm basically losing 100 levels on each wall, 110 levels on each wall. So because they're all at 130 at the moment. So that is 50. So every two wall levels is like 100 mil. So I should go down to about 253, 254 as my entry weight. So I'm going to drop about 100 here, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. As you can see, we're at 138 here, 130, 130, 140. So yeah, I'm gonna drop down to about 250, maybe a bit lower. For that, let's have another look at our opponents. They are sitting pretty at 3.42, and currently paper is sitting at 2.45. So they have got a bit of weight on us. They have 55 members, we have 58, but ours are a majority builders. If we just have a quick look, just giving the game away, that's basically our, yeah, we're majority builders here, as you can see. So we might have a large number of players, but in reality, we've got you know we've not got a lot. And in terms of what these guys have, um, I'm not sure if these are alts. Uh, these five definitely. This guy, not sure. That guy looks like it might be a dead account. That's a dead account. Ain't no way that's actually a live account. If that's a live account, I'd be very surprised. Um, so we're basically going to be fighting R5s and R4s head to head. So I will struggle with this guy quite heavily. I think it'll be me and him fighting toe to toe for most of the conquest. If I'm perfectly honest, if I see him, I'm just gonna have to go for him. Damn be the consequences. And these three down here, I don't. That looks like an alt of him, if I'm honest. So yeah, it doesn't look like. I haven't looked at this guy. Not a massive threat because obviously the officer power also includes air and navy, so you can't really tell how good someone is just on the ground or just in the naval space. 176 is highest naval warfare power, all time highest power is 272. So we're looking at, yeah, I think he'll be about the same level as me on entry. Build points, yeah, 95. What's this guy's build points? How active is he? 102. Compare that to me. I'm fairly active. Mm, not that much more active than them. So yeah, it's okay, I guess. Bit of wins. Anyway, I'm rambling somewhat. No questions this evening. No one wants to say anything interesting. No one has anything to contribute, or anything inquisitive about Warpath in general. I'll open up the questioning to that as well. Should you have any additional. Sorry, I'm just reading Discord. Mm. Right. Well, I've been the Smoking Cheddar. Hello, Jormungand. You've. I just assume you have arrived at the exact moment I've decided to to end the stream. So thanks for showing up there, buddy. It's the thought that counts. All right. Anyway, I'm the Smoking Cheddar, and you guys have been very patient, except for Jormungand, who apparently just arrived on the scene. Um, there is always a link to the Discord in the description box down below. And please remember to read the rules as you enter the Discord, otherwise, it doesn't let you go any further. Now, out on Discord, for those of you who are still listening who are on the Discord currently, as you are aware, Discord are going to be requiring identification soon in some way, shape, or form to be leveraged in order to continue using the platform. There has been a small discussion amongst the people available. Which one's the best Air Force officer to awaken first? I can categorically state Blade Wing. Without fighters, your bombers are just going to get shot out the sky. Blade Wing's one of the core fighter officers that you need. And if everyone keeps saying, "Ooh, don't get him, he's trash," he's not trash. Your other option is Sky Jockey. They're equally as good. Personally, I'd get Blade Wing first. Then I would get Sky Jockey. Um, but that is at your discretion, depending Excuse me, I that was my everything repeating on me all at once. Um, Depending entirely on how you personally want to play the game, Iceman. Um, if you want to crit build aircraft, then obviously Sky Jockey is better. If you're looking at dealing more skill damage and just being a nasty interceptor, being a virus out on the field for other aircraft, Blade Wing's your man. So just think about what you personally want to get out of it, and then go from there. But my choice has been and always will be Blade Wing first. If you're doing them one at a time, I would level them all equally. Level one across the board, level two across the board, level three across the board, and I would start at slot one, go slot two, slot three, slot four, and just do that until it's awakened. That is how I do it. For the most part, sometimes I will bum down and get a tactical skill first, but for the most part, I level them across the board. The exceptions are when the tactical skill leverages so much power, I will get that first. But even here, you can see with Yardbird, I went everything to level 3 first, and then I got the tactical skill to level 5. And now I'm working on getting everything up to level 4 before I get everything up to level 5. So just think tactical skill, is it worth me getting it maxed out? And then go tactical skills, skill 2, skill 3, skill 4, back to the tactical skill. And then ask yourself again, do I need to get this maxed out yet? And then just keep going. What about with jockey? It's the same. It's always the same. Always the same. Do your tactical skill, do slot 2, slot 3, slot 4. Personally, for me, with Sky Jockey, I'm trying to get her to tactical skill 5 before I do everything at level 2. I did, as you can see, I started this originally was a trained skill here, which is why it's at level 2. But I am trying to get her tactical skill to 5 first, and then I will be equally distributing slot 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 5. So, yeah. Don't stress too much, Iceman, about the order, how you unlock stuff. Think about the long term implications. So, like, do you need this? When I say the long term implications, it takes about 6 weeks as a free to play player to awaken an officer. If you hit all of your, um, if you get to VIP 18 and you're hitting all of your not arms race, all of your battle honors events, and you save up 120,000 gold and you keep a minimum of 120,000 gold, and then when the wheel comes you dump that 120,000 gold into the wheel, it should take you, if you repeat that cycle, about 6 weeks, and you should get an awakened officer. That is how I got so many officers as a free to play player. I know at the moment I am not technically classed as free to play, as we discussed at the start of this stream. I know that's not actually the case. But yeah, I'm not using that subscription at the moment to get more statues. I'm using that subscription at the moment to get more city badges, which I can convert to coins. But that is how you do it. Keep a reserve of gold very high. Wait for the wheel to come round. If you are at the moment, because the wheel is out, if you don't have it maxed out to level 100 by day 2, skip it for the next time. It happens every 3 weeks. The wheel is every 3 weeks. Do you buy out all the VIP? No, I never buy out the VIP statues. Never. At VIP, I'm at VIP 17. I get 3 statues a day. I don't buy the statues out of the VIP store because you only get 20 of them, and it will cost you the same amount of gold over 3 weeks to get 60 as it will to spin the wheel to level 100. As you can see, I'm only 13 off at the moment. The only reason for that is I spunked just a tiny amount, 20k too much on gear this week. I miscalculated by 20 grand, and that's my own fault. But the wheel's available for 3 days, once every 3 weeks. So tomorrow I will still be getting the maximum, and I never ever spin it past 100. If you really want to, you spin it up to 99, and then use your free spins to get it over the 100. But never ever go past 100 unless it's with a free spin. But there you have it. That is this event right here is how you awaken officers so quickly. And when I say like, oh, it's only going to take you a couple of weeks to awaken an officer, and people are just like, how do you do it? Like, that's how I do it. I believe I might have even covered it in a video like way back, like 2, maybe 3 years ago at this point, where I was trying to tell people how to do the lucky wheel. In fact, let me just. No, actually, I never done a video on the lucky wheel. I thought I did. Well, there you have it. I'll tell you now. That's how it's done. I'll do a specific stream on the lucky wheel proper maybe next time, and we can discuss it then a bit more in depth. So anyway, I'm gonna go now because I want to finish drinking my white monster, and I'm going to be in Discord in a bit, over in my Alliance channel in Discord, because obviously we're going to be going into Conquest in about 3 hours' time. Hence the white monster rather than the cherry Pepsi. Also, if Monster, if you guys want to sponsor me, I drink this stuff like 2-3 times a day. I don't care if it's bad for me. I don't care if it's going to kill me. Just give me more white monster. I've been the Smoking Cheddar, and you guys have been very patient. A link to the Discord will be in the description box down below. Please remember, guys, to be adults if you do join the Discord. We like to take the piss out of each other, plain and simple. Do remember to read the rules, otherwise it won't let you advance any further. And as always, there is a link to my favorite charity down there as well. Have you done a video on your daily or weekly things that you do for your account? No, Iceman, I have not. I have not. I've done a couple of the events separately, but I have not specifically done that. So just hit your jurisdictions, make sure your jurisdictions are relevant for the day in order to advance your arms race to max level, or your battle honors to max level. If your jurisdiction does not advance your daily arms race, save it until it does. You have the capacity to do that now. That's all I'll say on the matter at the moment. Oh, shut up, Aaron. Rear your ugly head once in a blue moon. Anyway, do you want to go airsofting in a couple of days? You smell funny. I've been meaning to text you, but I keep forgetting. Are you over in D's Discord? Alright, cool. Right. I'm going to end the stream because I want to neck this white monster and play video games before the Conquest opens up and I get sucked into that for the next 4 weeks. So go knock yourselves out, guys. Go have fun with this build, okay? And I will see you all next week for inevitably not another officer spotlight on Yardbird, because I don't need to do a officer spotlight on Yardbird. Everyone else has already done him. He's too good. You don't need my opinions. My opinions are